How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here, After Dark Radio. We are here every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network, as well as streaming live on video, video.f4wonline.com. You can listen live and watch live every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. And we got a lot to talk about here today. No guest on the program here today. Been a while since we did a solo show. Solo shows can sometimes be difficult if there's not a lot of news. But we have a lot to talk about here today. And in fact, it would have been a good time to do a solo show maybe next week, because this weekend I'm going to the Chehalis UFO party, I believe it's called. The Chehalis Flying Saucer Party. I'll plug it here in a while because I'm going. I went last year, had a really fun time. And they got a lot of speakers scheduled for this year. As well as, on Saturday night, there is a showing of a film at the Chehalis Theater. And I'll tell you about what that film is when we come back from the break, in case you are in the area and would like to go to the Chehalis Flying Saucer Party. So we got that to talk about, as well as some... I mean, it's always weird when you talk about Bigfoot videos. But we got weirdness on top of weirdness, I got to mention here today. Also, an update on a fella who was a paranormal expert who was touring with the Annabelle doll, who ended up being found dead. It was a big story several weeks ago. We got an update on that. Plus, what appears to be some of the best evidence yet that life once existed on Mars. We've got some weird mystery messages being transmitted out of Russia, and plenty more. It's going to be a fun time today. If you got stories, I'm going to read emails as well. You got weird stories from your life? You're welcome to send them to me, Bryan at AfterDarkRadioShow.com, or comments on anything we talk about here on the program, past guests, etc. Send it to Bryan at AfterDarkRadioShow.com. Back in a moment with more After Dark Radio Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Show. Bryan Alvarez here, After Dark Radio. Every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern, live. Sports Byline Broadcasting Network, as well as YouTube, f4wonline.com/video, and Twitch, twitch.tv/f4wvideo. You can watch the show every Wednesday if you're used to listening to it on the podcast. However you podcast the shows, you can always watch live. And we got a lot to get into here today. No guest, so you're always welcome to keep me company with your emails, brian@afterdarkradioshow.com. And we do have a lot of emails to get into over the next several weeks. If you've ever sent something to the show, it's going to be read at some point or another. And we will get into some of them today. But I do want to do a quick plug. I have no financial stake in this. I'm paying to go. So this weekend is the Chehalis Flying Saucer Party. It is about, I'd say probably an hour and 10 minutes from Seattle. About an hour and a half from my house, Chehalis, Washington. And basically the gimmick is that, there have been reports of UFOs in some form or another. I mean, dating back to the Bible and probably even before that, if you look at people see things on cave paintings and they're like, what is that? I mean, there have been reports of strange things in the sky for thousands and thousands of years. But if we're talking about the modern UFO scene, it all dates back to about 1947. There were big UFO-related flaps prior to that. In the late 1800s, there were airships that were reported, and a lot of weird things involving airships. Which, by the way, I was outside the other day, and my kids and I, we looked up, and there was a blimp, and I can't even remember the last time I saw a blimp. But it was a big, cigar-shaped blimp, slowly go. That was weird. But, that's what people reported in the late 1800s, these airships. But the modern UFO mythology, so to speak, all dates from 1947. And it wasn't Roswell. It was actually prior to Roswell when Kenneth Arnold saw a bunch of things flying near Mount Rainier. He was searching for a downed. If I recall the story correctly, there was a alleged UFO. It was this whole story, this alleged UFO sighting, and I guess allegedly they sent the military, and the military picked some stuff up. And the military was flying it back to a base, but that plane crashed. And so Kenneth Arnold was a pilot, and he was looking for the debris of this plane near Mount Rainier, and he saw these objects, and he described them as looking like saucers skipping across the water. So, now everyone thinks about the round UFO, but his actual, what he claimed he saw, were more kind of boomerang-shaped, kind of a rounded boomerang shape. But he said he saw them flying near Mount Rainier, and he had taken off from Chehalis. So Chehalis every year celebrates that they are the beginning of all of this craziness involving UFOs. It is a Chehalis Flying Saucer Party. And what they're doing this weekend, I went last year, and it's a pretty fun, there are speakers, and sometimes the speakers talk about things that could potentially be scary for little kids, Maybe if they're discussing aliens abducting you out of your bed, you might not want to bring the kids. But if you're not listening to the speakers, it is a very fun, family-friendly deal. There's a UFO art show. There's a Flying Saucer Film Fest, which we'll get into. There is a silent auction. There are vendors. There's all sorts of UFO memorabilia in the museum, the Lewis County Historical Museum. There's a UFO Lego display, a bunch of speakers. There's a flying saucer craft table for the kids. There's an alien invasion costume parade, which is exactly what it sounds like. And I witnessed it last year, and it was something else. There is a saucer drop immediately following the parade, they drop a flying saucer out of the sky. And various artists dressed as aliens perform music throughout the day. So anyway, if you want to go, you can go to flying-saucer-party.org and get all of the information. And the speakers include Bruce Olav Solheim, Ph.D. He is going to be talking. He's going to do an event, We Are the Aliens. Maureen Morgan will be talking Doom or Divine Deliverance, Apocalypse in the Age of Aquarius. That's at 3:30. There's a speaker panel at 5:30 where you can basically ask everybody questions, all of the speakers. And I think there's another speaker earlier in the day. Lewis County First Contact, Vince Nzunza. That is at 11 a.m. And I think there's another one at 9:30 as well. Yes, 9:30 is Chris Grant, From Science to Sacrilege, analyzing the enigma of UFOs and abductions. So if you get the VIP package, you can go and see all of the speakers. Otherwise, I think you have to pay $15 a ticket. But the real main event is Saturday night at 7:30 at McFiler's Chehalis Theater. There will be a screening of Plan 9 from Outer Space. And if you don't know what Plan 9 from Outer Space is, I recommend Googling it. It is an Ed Wood film. It is widely regarded, or at least it was for many years, as the worst film ever made. And there's actually a movie called Ed Wood, starring Johnny Depp, and it's an incredible movie about Ed Wood. And in that movie is George the Animal Steel, who plays Tor Johnson. Tor Johnson was a wrestler who was in Plan 9 from Outer Space, and they needed a wrestler to play the wrestler, and they chose George the Animal Steel, who actually looks remarkably like Tor Johnson. But Plan 9 from Outer Space is playing at 7:30 p.m. There'll also be a Northwest Flying Saucer Film Fest Audience Choice winner screening beforehand, and that is Saturday at 7:30. So I'm going to be there. If you want to go, let's go. It's going to be a lot of fun. I should also mention this, and if anybody has anything, if anybody can help me out here, I'd appreciate it. I just cannot figure this out for the life of me. So I got a buddy who's super into Bigfoot, and he's always sending me videos, and we send stuff back and forth. And he sent me this rather recent Bigfoot video. And if we're being honest, like, I hate Bigfoot videos and photos because, to me, they all look so fake. And, I mean, the only one I've ever seen... Actually, there are two. There are two really good ones. One, obviously, is a Patterson-Gimlin film, which... You know, every time people say it's fake, it looks like a man in a suit. I always want them to watch other Bigfoot videos and see what a guy in a suit actually looks like. Or even like, you know, films from the 70s where they have people in costumes. I mean, Patterson-Gimlin's really good. And then there's another one, which I watched on Finding Bigfoot. I forget off the top of my head. I'll have it after the break. But then, you know, this video that my buddy sent me, this one was like really good. Like, remarkably good. And it was basically a trail cam video of two Bigfoot, big feet, whatever, you know, going through the woods behind these trees. And the thing about it was they moved like apes. I mean, it was like apes on two legs. I mean, it was a really, really good video. And I went up to find it a couple days later, and it's gone. Said it was pulled for a copyright claim. And then there were like a bunch of other videos, and they also were pulled for copyright claims. So I don't know what's going on or where they are, but I'm trying to find them. So if anybody knows, let me know. Back in a moment with more After Dark Radio, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Back at the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Yeah, people are asking where the video is. That's my question. I don't know. It was an awesome video. The thing with these Bigfoot videos of late is that anything post like 2023 or so, I'm just very skeptical of, because I keep seeing these videos and it's like, okay, that's clearly AI. That's AI. There's just so much AI out there. And this one, I mean, this one looked real. And here's my thing with with Bigfoot videos, because I saw one really, really good video, and this thing looked like it might have been a photo, I can't remember. But the point is, I looked at it and it's like, that looks exactly like an ape. Didn't look like a costume. Didn't look like, I mean, AI. It just looked, that looks like an ape. And, you know, the person who had taken the photo or video or whatever it was, they claimed, you know, I was in these woods on this day, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, my first thought is always, I'm always looking for, like, what's a logical explanation that isn't Bigfoot. And this video looks so much like an ape that my thought was, okay, this is an ape. Like, someone's probably at the zoo, or, I mean, maybe they were even, you know, somewhere out and wherever, and there was an actual ape there, and they got this picture and then claimed, you know, I was actually in the woods in, you know, Georgia or whatever, and I took this picture. So they're lying about where they took the picture, and it is actually an ape, but the ape wasn't where they claimed it was. So there's always that, and I bring that up because the other video that I was talking about, I was watching Finding Bigfoot. It's a long story. But anyway, Stacy Brown has this FLIR footage that he took. And it's pretty old, actually. But in the footage, it's just like, it's all dark. And you see like this kind of whitish blob, just like a little bit of it, because apparently it's behind a tree. And all of a sudden, the blob just goes from one tree to behind another tree. So when you first see it, your first thought is, that's a guy. Just some fella just went from one tree to behind another tree. It looks, you know, it looks like a person, you know? And this is like a legendary video, apparently. And like the first several times I saw it, I was like, oh, what am I looking at here? It looks like a guy. I mean, he could be in a suit. He could be whatever. You can't even see anything. It's just a white blur of, you know, it goes from behind one tree quickly into the clearing, and then it ends up behind another tree. So for the longest time, I was like, this is nothing special. So then I'm watching Finding Bigfoot, and they actually go to Stacy Brown's house. And this Stacy Brown fella, he says, I'll take you to exactly where it happened. And so they go out to where it allegedly happened, and there's, in fact, the tree and the clearing and the other tree. So they decide, well, we'll do a recreation. And so they get Bobo, James Fay, who's one of the guys in Finding Bigfoot, and he's a big dude. You know, he's 6-something, heavy. Back then he was a heavy guy. He's lost a lot of weight now, but he's a big dude, 6'2" or so. I mean, he's big. So they put him behind the tree. They turn on the FLIR, and they tell him to go. And he does his best Bigfoot impression of going from behind one tree to behind the other tree. Well, it takes him like 2 steps. He's got to go boom, boom to get behind the other tree. And so you go to the original video, and this thing goes from behind one tree to the other tree, 1 step, boom, it's behind the tree. And then you look at the size of Bobo, and you compare it to the size of the thing in the other video, and this other thing is way bigger. I mean, it's way bigger. It's got a much larger stride, and he's trying to get behind that tree in 1 step, and he can't do it. So after seeing the recreation, I mean, they have one of the characters on the show, Renee. She's a scientist. She doesn't believe in any of this, but they have to have the skeptical person there. She watches this. She's like, whoa, I cannot explain that. And so after you see the recreation, and then after you see the original, you pretty much... There's actually, I think, only 2 explanations. One is that's a Bigfoot, and the other is they lied about where this was. In other words, they found two trees that were closer together, and they had a guy run between the trees. They claimed, well, actually, those are the trees. The trees are much further apart. And then you cannot recreate it because that's not actually where it happened. So to me, those are the only two explanations. Because if Stacey Brown is telling the truth, and that is the exact same two trees that he filmed the original on, there's no way it's a person. It's way too tall, and its stride is just enormous. So anyway, that's you can find it on YouTube. Just Google the Brown footage. And, at first glance, when you see it, like I said, it looks like nothing. But if you watch the episode of Finding Bigfoot where they recreated it with their own FLIR and Bobo, it's like, if that's the actual location, you can't do it. So anyway, that's a good one. I wish I could find these other videos, but the first one that I was talking about, it's been pulled. And then, my buddies sent me another one, and that one has also been pulled, both due to copyright claims. So I don't know what's going on. I've tried to Google it and see if I can find it anywhere, and I can't. So I don't know. If I find it, I will let y'all know. All right, we're going to do a little bit of news here. Somebody had sent an email, and you're welcome to email me, Bryan at AfterDarkRadioshow.com. Anything that is on your mind, we can talk about whatever. But this was back in July. Bryan had sent me this story about a paranormal investigator who had been traveling with the alleged haunted Annabelle doll, and he died. His name was Dan Rivera. Rivera was on his sold-out and infamous Devils on the Run tour, during which he took Annabelle to different locations to give ticket holders the opportunity to meet the doll. He was affiliated with the New England Society for Psychic Research. By the way, this was also around the time that there was a story out that the Annabelle doll had been going around the country on this tour, but she vanished from a locked glass case. And turns out that never happened. But anyway, this actually did happen. So he was on this tour, and he was found unresponsive in his hotel room on July 13th. He was 54 years old. He had wrapped up a show. Emergency responders were called. They administered CPR, and he passed away. And so, because it was an Annabelle doll related story, everybody freaked out. And, then the stories were that the doll had been in the room with him, and all of this other stuff. So this was back in July, and they were going to do an autopsy, obviously, to find out the cause of death, and pretty much been waiting for that for quite a while. And I actually had a story here, but now I can't find it, but it doesn't matter because I remember. They did the autopsy, and essentially what happened is cardiac event is the way it was described. And they also said that he had had cardiac issues for quite a while. And so here it is, autopsy released. It says here the coroner is now releasing the autopsy, the death of a supernatural investigator. After a months-long investigation, the coroner, Adams County coroner, confirmed that he had passed away due to, quote, a cardiac-related event. It was also noted that Rivera had a history of, quote, cardiac issues that were synonymous with the result of his passing, and so his death was ruled as natural. So the coroner, of all people, also confirmed that the doll was not in the room when he passed away. And so basically it was a person who had had heart issues for a long time and passed away due to heart issues. Natural causes, had nothing to do with the doll, and that is the story there. So, should mention, of course, all the best to his friends and family, because, he passed away, and all everybody could talk about was the doll, and not the guy that actually passed away. So, all the best to his friends and family. Sad story, but that is the That is the story. Also, before we go to break, this actually has nothing to do with After Dark, but I know that we got a lot of wrestling listeners, so I did want to mention this because I saw it when I was checking the news. They have found, we always say, like, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Carl Stern always comes on the show to talk historical wrestling and, these storylines and Abe Lincoln and worked matches, all that dating back to the mid-1800s. It's all the same stuff that just goes in a cycle. Well, archaeologists in Serbia have found the first physical evidence of Roman gladiators fighting bears, which of course has been a thing in pro wrestling forever, wrestling bears. This was gladiators fighting bears. It was one of the entertainment spectacles in the amphitheaters, and they would put gladiators in there with a bear, and they would fight the bears. So they found the first evidence of that 1,700 years ago. Man versus bear matches in Serbia. Back in a moment with more After Dark. After Dark Radio, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. And the show, Bryan Alvarez here, After Dark Radio. Sports Byline Broadcasting Network every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. And going to go into a couple of emails, and we got some more to talk about. But I promised a bunch of emails, so let's do one of them. I've been asking, if you got a precognitive story, what does that mean? Well, maybe you had a dream about something that came true, or you had a vision of something, or you just knew something was going to happen and it did. And we're not talking like some whatever, but like profoundly weird. You saw something happen before it did. And Marcelo sent this in several months ago, actually. Longtime listener. Says, Brian, the story happened when I was 12 in 2003. Not to me, but to my mom. My mom randomly woke me up one morning, 5 a.m. before school, started hugging me tight. She has tears in her eyes. I was kind of confused. She told me she had a dream that her niece, who she raised and hadn't spoken to in years, was screaming and crying for help. Still confused, she kissed me on my forehead, left my room, and we all went to sleep. I woke up 4 hours later, and I headed downstairs. My mom was talking with other family members at the kitchen table. Not wanting to disturb them, I go to watch TV, and the news is on. The top story is the person my mom had just dreamed about was killed, along with 3 others, one kind of related, in their home in one of Denver's worst mass murders in over a decade at the time. The people in the home were killed execution style with a 3-year-old survivor and her dad who was shot twice. Unfortunately, I never knew much about that side of the family aside from when any funerals or tragedies popped up, as there's been so much infighting, continues to this day, so I can't provide an update. And he's linked to the stories here. And so he's saying that, like, the day it happened, his mother had a dream that something terrible had happened and woke up that morning and it had. So that is from Marcelo. He's got some links to some news stories here. Homicide victims had cocaine in their systems. Police search for killers. So yeah, that is a precognitive dream, if I've ever heard one. If you want to send a story, if you've got something, you can send it to me, Brian at AfterDarkRadioshow.com. That is Brian at AfterDarkRadioshow.com. Cassidy here says, back in 2018, my mom and I were invited to my uncle's wedding. We didn't know a whole lot about his wife, but she seemed nice enough. My uncle gave my mom a picture of him and his wife on their wedding day, and she hung it on the wall in our living room. I was home alone one day, and I heard the sound of glass breaking coming from the living room. I went to go check it out, and the picture itself, as well as the glass of the frame, was on the floor, but the back of the frame was still hung on the wall as if the frame fell apart. A month later, my great-aunt followed his wife to another man's house at 2 a.m., When my great-aunt asked the wife why she was there, all she said it was strictly business. My great-aunt told my uncle later that morning, and the marriage was annulled a month later. So that precognitive experience involved the wedding picture shattering to lead to the dissolution of their marriage. Is that how to term it? So that was from Cassidy. And let's do one more here. This is from Rich in Philly. He says, I just wanted to follow up my last email with an update. I had a precognitive incident regarding an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation last week. After I sent my email on Wednesday, I started getting flashes of a specific episode called Yesterday's Enterprise. It's a very popular episode of the series where an Enterprise from the past comes to the future and alters the timeline around him. The only character that knows that the timeline has been altered is Gunan, played by Whoopi Goldberg. She then spends the episode trying to convince Captain Picard, played by Patrick Stewart, to send the ship back and restore the timeline, even though it will mean sending them back into a battle where the ship will be destroyed and all hands will be killed. There is a dramatic scene between the two where Picard asks her, "Who is to say that this history is any less proper than the other?" She responds, "I suppose I am." And he shouts, "Not good enough, damn it, not good enough! I will not ask them to die." The specific exchange began playing in my head repeatedly whenever I showered, drove, or fell asleep. This went from Wednesday through Friday. On Friday, I finished watching SmackDown, put my son to bed, sat down and watched TV. I was caught up on wrestling, got a strong urge to watch Star Trek The Next Generation. The only place I knew that streamed it was Pluto TV. Went there, tuned into one episode. It was ending. A new one was about to begin. And yes, it was yesterday's Enterprise. I was in disbelief this had happened again for the first time in so many years. Saturday morning, I listened to last week's episode of After Dark where he read my email, mentioned we grew up in an era where we didn't have so many devices to stimulate our minds. I think you're correct because these new flashes occurred in the only situations where I wouldn't have been on my phone. Also, I think the nature of TV viewing has changed now that we watch everything on demand. The only shows I don't watch on demand are wrestling, and there are no reruns. I'm going to see if I can get this to happen again and develop it into something useful like a winning lottery number, he says. But they don't have reruns either. We did talk about that. Has anyone had something like that happen to you? Where you just, I guess it doesn't happen so much nowadays because, like you said, everyone watches everything on demand. But I remember when I was a kid, I'd be going to watch whatever episode of a show I was going to watch. And every now and then I would just have this episode in my mind and it would then air. So, that happened a long time ago. I vaguely remember it. You don't think much of it at a time. I guess you sort of do, but you kind of tack it up to, well, I could have been thinking about it and another one aired. Just a coincidence. But I do remember that happened. So who knows if there's anything to it. One more here. This is from Chris. Chris in Vegas. Good friend of mine, actually. Went and visited his school over WrestleMania weekend. He says, Brian, at my high school, there was a girl named Marija in my English class. We sat next to each other through the entire year. She had traveled from Yugoslavia on a student program to complete her senior year of high school. We ended up becoming good friends at our school. Our 25th high school reunion is coming up. Started to wonder what became of her. When I look her up in my high school yearbook, I don't find her. I look by names, any picture that may resemble what she looked like, nothing. Go to classmates.com. Using her last name. She didn't come up. Started to look to see if I spelled her name wrong. Looked for anyone that might have similar spellings for her first name. Nothing. Check the autograph session for my yearbook. I know she signed it because she was a good friend. Nothing. I begin to match names with signatures. Maybe I got her name completely wrong. Nothing. Lastly, she was in my after-school newspaper club. She's not in the group picture, nor is she named as being in it. So I'm not sure what to think about it anymore. It is like she has ceased to exist. And that is from Chris in Vegas. That's a good one. Anybody else have anything happen like that? You remember having an old friend, and you go back to find out where they are today, and you can't find anything about them anywhere. It's like they never existed. And that's what happened to him with Marija here from his English class back in the day. All right, so I've mentioned before that if you want to follow me, I'm at Bryan Alvarez on X and Blue Sky. And Yeti Pot Pie on Blue Sky sent me a video, which actually is kind of all over the place today. This is from ABC News. Video released in congressional hearing shows a mystery aircraft survive missile hit. Never before seen video shows a mystery aircraft off the coast of Yemen surviving a missile attack from a U.S. drone. The object appeared undamaged before speeding away. And really, the article doesn't say anything else, but you can watch the video. And it's definitely bizarre. There's this object speeding. And missile hits it. It kind of moves off course a little bit and then kind of goes off screen. And then the video ends and it just kind of replays over and over again. And George Knapp, there's actually some footage of him. He's one of the hosts for Coast to Coast AM, but he said very compelling video, and it is. And what I can tell you is I go on a lot of forums, and, some of them, a lot of these people are really into this stuff, but they're very much skeptics. And, they do everything in their power to figure out what actually was that. And if you remember during that, the drones over New Jersey, remember those mystery drones? Which I believe I said, this is going to be a short flap and then we're never going to hear about it again. And that kind of has happened. Although sometimes people bring it up again. But they went, they spent so much time investigating like every single one of these and looking at the pictures and triangulating and checking the time and checking the flight logs. And I mean, it was always, this was an unidentified aircraft. This person mistook this aircraft. This person mistook this, the moon. This person, I mean, they had like every single one. They could figure out what it was. So they haven't figured out this one yet. They have not figured out this one yet. This one's pretty good. The main theory, I think that people are coming up with here is that it was a balloon of some sort, and after it gets hit, the balloon basically starts going down, but since it's shot from above, because it's going down, it looks like it's continuing like unfazed going forward, but it's actually kind of going down at an angle, and that's the theory as to what it could be. Some sort of balloon, but they haven't quite figured out exactly what it is yet. But if you look at it with the idea that it's a balloon and it gets hit and then it slowly starts descending, I mean, you can see that. That seems to me a pretty likely possibility. And the way it moves as well, it looks like a balloon. But it is a new mystery video. It is a UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. I mean, whether they're aliens or not, one thing that we can say is that they're unidentified, at least thus far. Also wanted to mention that new article out. Mars. They feel they have found the best evidence yet that there was once life on Mars. This is from The Sun in the UK. Evidence of ancient alien microbes have been uncovered in a dry river channel formed 3.7 billion years ago, scientists reported. Sample obtained by Perseverance, the rover, found sediment on the bottom of a lake which points towards potential signs of ancient microbial life. So there's a quote from Sean Duffy, who was the acting NASA administrator, and he says, a year ago, we thought we found what we believed to be signs of microbial life on Mars' surface. We put it to our scientific friends to pressure test it, analyze it. Did we get this right? Do we think this is a sign of ancient life on Mars? After a year of review, they've come back and they said, listen, we can't find another explanation. So it's not 100%, but they do believe that this very well could be the clearest sign of life that has ever been found on Mars. So between that and the James Webb telescope, we may be getting closer and closer to at least knowing that we're not the only life in the universe. Back in a moment with more After Dark Radio, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Joe Bryan Alvarez here, After Dark Radio, every Wednesday, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. And if you are listening to this on podcast, you can always listen to the show live, 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern on Wednesday, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network, which you can listen to through TuneIn Radio, or you can watch us on YouTube. F4WOnline.com/YouTube is our YouTube page. Or if you're a subscriber, twitch.tv/F4W video. And if you are watching live, we've got, I think, like 70 archived episodes at this point. 50 to 70. However long we've done this reboot of After Dark. Available at WrestlingObserver.com with a subscription. Or if you're not a wrestling fan, you can just get the podcasts at Apple Podcasts, F4WOnline.com/Apple. That is F4WOnline.com/Apple, or Spotify, F4WOnline.com/Spotify. Archives of all of the shows are up there if you want to go back and listen to past shows. We've had a lot of great guests, and we got a lot of great guests coming up as well. Big thanks to Andrew Lutsky, who gets all of the guests for this program. He does a great job. Without him, I can just tell you right now, there would not be a show. So, last week we had Jason Offit on, which was a lot of fun. And he's going to be rebooked for the next few weeks as well. So, a lot of stuff, fun stuff coming up here on After Dark Radio. So, check that out. And we're going to wrap it up. Don't forget, if you want to go to the Flying Saucer Party this weekend, it is Friday and Saturday, actually, in Chehalis, Washington, flyingsaucerparty.org. We'll talk about that in the next couple of weeks as well, so check it out. And that's it, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. After Dark Radio, Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.